That's the whole thing about storytelling and content marketing. It's about your identity. Who are you? What do you do? And the person who likes what you do and who you are is probably similar in a way as you are.
Welcome to Wires on Cross, the podcast where we untangle the world of affiliate and digital marketing, produced by Clickwire. I'm your host, Luisa, and today we have Floris van Zuten from Fashion United. He is the content and brand manager, and he knows a lot about what kind of content works best to understand your target audience and what really can push your brand to get recognition and to start a community, which at the end of the day is what we want when we start a company. He gives us pointers, highs and lows, and helps us understand a little bit what it is to be involved in content so much in an industry that is so changing and so niched, just as fashion. So it's a super interesting episode that we have today. He was super friendly and super nice to give us a lot of his experiences, and he is someone that is close to the Sneaky Yackers and Clickwire family. So it was amazing to have him in the podcast and hearing all of the vast experience that he has, not only on fashion, but he's worked in many other industries. And that's why his experience is so interesting to understand the world of content in general, right? So thank you so much for tuning in on another episode. Let's talk about content marketing. We're here in the offices of Sneaky Yackers / Clickwire for a new episode of Wires Uncrossed. We have Floris van Zuten joining us in the podcast today, and we're going to talk about content management. So welcome.
Thank you.
Can you let us know a little bit more about you and a small introduction about what you do and what kind of industries you've worked with?
Yeah, for sure. So I started out in Hong Kong, working for a company that sells conservative products, like jars or cans or stuff like that, to put into the market of Hong Kong from the Netherlands. And what they wanted me to do is the research for the market, see which kind of products would work, what price range would we use. So that was more of like marketing, but also product positioning in the physical world.
Yeah.
And from there on, I went to a company where I did more like online media for companies. So it could be socials, Facebook, Instagram. And from there on, I went into something that I wanted to do for a longer time, which was fashion industry.
Yeah.
So I looked online for a job where I could use my skills, but also follow my passion. And then I found Fashion United.
Nice.
Because that's basically the place to look for a job in fashion.
Yeah.
And I found it, but it was with them. So
yeah,
it's kind of the funny part.
Yeah,
I ended up there. And from what I'm doing now is I work together with, let's say, 100, 200 brands on a yearly basis, from Zeeman, Decathlon to Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, very broad.
Nice. But that's a really good thing to have that amount of experience in different kind of industries. I bet that the change was hard, but I mean, you can take a little bit of every industry that you worked on to put into working in fashion as a product, I guess.
Yeah, actually it was the easiest change because I took some time to think, what do I really want?
Yeah.
And one of my passions is the fashion.
Nice.
So doing that change in practice was actually really easy because it was low cost of energy because of it.
Yeah, that's
really what I was missing. So yeah, that's been the last 4 years.
Nice. And then what is it specifically that you do with content?
So our specialism within the company Fashion United is content.
Yeah.
Anything revolving about that, mainly on storytelling, like articles, writing, visuals, video. We hear, because we're also a news platform.
Yeah.
We also have an editorial department and they do independent journalism. So there's a lot of knowledge and information. And I think that's the base of what we do. We share knowledge and information with the target audience.
But obviously with that amount of information and as a news platform, then there's a lot of content that is produced that it reaches also to you that needs to be in a way like filtered and chosen, categorized in certain ways. Could you then give us a little bit of an overview about what content marketing is in your perspective?
Yeah. So your first question to answer that is, let's say a shocking 80% of the brands that we work with find writing, so content marketing, very difficult.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really one of the biggest challenges we run into. That's why we also made a department that actually writes,
Yeah.
so copywriters, because there's so much going on running a fashion company that before you know it, you're in the middle of the year, you're selling your products, they're produced, but you made a inspirational board
Yeah.
from the beginning with the designers, and you have colors and a country and a lifestyle and everything, and you make your samples.
Yeah.
Then they arrive and you produce them, and then once produced, you're gonna pre-sell them and people are gonna buy them, and then you know how much to order at the factory.
Yeah.
Then they pretty much start selling, and then a year later the consumers can buy them in the store.
Yeah.
And between all of that, they just forget to put their story in writing.
That is true. Yeah.
They go so fast, and they look back and another year passed.
Yeah.
So a lot of them have the story, but they have no idea where to start, how to write it.
So then what you do also as a content manager is to then kind of like guide them a little bit through where all of these technical things that they did at the beginning should go in terms of how to show and expose their brand into a bigger audience, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And what we also always say is like when anyone, you, me, go to the city or we go online to find a product, we don't really have a brand or a name usually in mind. Not in every case, but in quite a few cases where you're just looking for a pink sweater or you're looking for a white sneaker, and then you end up finding X brand. So it's also important to talk about what you do and claim the niche and authority basically about it.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I study fashion design. And one of the things that I noticed between my change between designing and going to the marketing side of my career was that there was no really correlation between one another. Like it was very complicated to be able to voice that into like a proper piece of content or whatever. And now with the digital media being the way that it is definitely much more critical to be able to curate the information that you put in that is adjusted to the niche that you're looking for. In terms of affiliate marketing and the connection that it exists with content marketing, how do you see that the two connect?
So for example, we write and publish a story about brand X.
Yeah.
And then right on the right side of the publication, there is a related product section.
Yeah.
And that will say brand X. But if we write about jeans, then it could be 3 jeans brands right next to it.
Yeah.
So it's important to have related products to the content.
Yeah.
Than per se one brand. Same as you go into the store as a consumer, you will want to find more than one brand in a store, usually.
So
because they strengthen each other.
Content marketing really sounds quite critical for your marketing plan, but it can be really overwhelming without a proper strategy. So can you share some insights that you have about creating content marketing strategy or a content development strategy that it could be useful for brands?
Yeah, for sure. I think the best way to understand that is the questions we ask brands, because usually they know, for example, what's your goal the coming year?
Yeah.
What's your long-term goal? And those 2 questions will tell you what you're going to write about in the coming year.
Yeah.
And which niche you want to claim your authority as a brand.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's the first important lesson there is like choose a niche. The more specific you choose, the easier it's going to become content-wise. And from there on, you can always grow. But then also, what's your long-term plan? If within that niche, what do you want to go within 5 years from now? Do you want to be well-known in the Netherlands? Do you want to be well-known in the Netherlands and Belgium or European or worldwide? And then we could say, well, is that even realistic? How much money do you have to spend? How much time do you have? All those factors. Content isn't built over a day or a week or a month. It's years.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have much money, you have time, then 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, take your time, I would say.
Yeah, and then
unless you're very rich.
that is
Then spend your money.
Then you can hire a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But then not since you have experience on other different industries, because obviously fashion is so much more different than doing all these other things that you've done.
Yeah.
Do you think that then strategy then changes too drastically, or do you think that now that you work in fashion, things are more short term because of how fast things are developing in the fashion industry?
Yeah, and that's a very interesting question, because the last words you said about how fast things are changing in the fashion is that nobody really understands or is able to keep up with these fast changes, because many companies and brands, they just lose a course, like a ship on the ocean. And the bigger you are, the harder it is to make a turn, especially after every crazy year that we've had. So some are not able to keep up with the change or cannot change fast enough. And new ones, they go like a rocket because they do all these new things. Content marketing, affiliate marketing, AI, those kind of things are the future for sure. And it goes fast. And this is a question, how fast is it going?
Yeah, exactly. So fast fashion, like, is creating more revenue because of the cost, right? The production is large, the cost of productions are low, and then the cost of the clothes is much cheaper. But then obviously this affects markets of smaller brands and indie brands. They want to grow and want to have higher revenue because of it. But all of this content that is coming out of fast fashion doesn't allow them to grow because they're more present and they don't give that much chance to it. So my question there, with that in mind, is, do you think that because of fast fashion, smaller indie brands feel more pressured to do more aggressive content strategies and therefore having like more risk?
Yeah. No, I think what I said earlier is that those smaller brands against fast fashion, they just need time. And, don't try to keep up in a pace of the world of fast fashion. Don't try to compete with a Zalando or H&M or a Zara. They're just so big. You're not going to make that. But try really focus on your niche, because there are people out there that are just like you, but then tell the story.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't have to do that at the pace they do, because you can't. But you have to be consistent and you have to be frequent. So you cannot do one in a year. That's too little. But try to do one a month. If that's too much, do one in the 2 months. But make a plan.
Yeah. But that's very interesting that you say that, because in the previous episode where we talked with the Latin experience, they left it very clear that for them, like, authenticity and sharing their story is the main thing that they're looking for. And they accolade a lot of their success to them being so genuine in the way that they portray themselves like that. Do you have any sort of, stories in terms of, as a content manager, have you seen of success stories of brands that the content that you've seen and helped with has created like some, give them a push, and then they have created more success for themselves?
Yeah, definitely. And it's like shooting blindfolded, because you publish something, right? You write a story. Before it's published, before it's out there in the world, nobody really knows what it's going to do. Yeah. So I think that's what I've seen over the last 3 years, that sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny to see. And then you read the article, you look at the text and you think, it's not really a clear reason why it was so successful. Yeah. But it's just like a momentum thing.
Yeah.
Like you push a ball, it starts rolling and it gains momentum. And sometimes it gains a lot of it just because it's in the right time, in the right place, the right moment. And that's why you need to be consistent and frequent about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That
especially for the smaller ones.
Yeah. And as a manager or as a marketer, as yourself, what are the main things that you're looking for in terms of the content that you see, that you like to put out there, that you feel like it benefits your brands?
So we always look into that it shares knowledge and information, because basically any person is benefiting from knowing more about it. And that's also what the consumers or your audience or whoever it is that you want to reach with your story is what they want. They don't want to have a salesy, pushy story that says, we are the best, this is our brand name. Like all of that is secondary.
Yeah.
First, they want to know, can you help them with information, something that they didn't know yet? And it could be like, what does really well is like top 3 outfits for going to the beach,
Yeah.
or anything in that kind of idea could do well. Or we talk to an expert. Maybe you know somebody in your network, family, friends, whoever, that knows a lot about a topic, and that topic relates to what you do in your business.
Yeah.
Then talk to them
That sounds,
and ask them questions and make it into an article.
or get them into a podcast. That sounds very, very familiar.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's very possible. So what is, in your experience, the best performing type of articles? And also my follow-up question to that is, what makes it quality content for you as a brand manager, saying like, yeah, like that's the piece that I want?
So pretty basic stuff actually manages that. But when the basics are really good, it's like the foundation of your content, basically. So pictures, always make sure you have landscape pictures. Why? Because when you publish something, could be mobile. Yeah, we do have, for example, a category who's like, it's called in the picture.
Yeah.
And why? Because the reader knows what they can expect. Visuals.
Nice.
We also have a segment video, double dot. Then the topic. What do the readers expect? A video. So that's a good, simple way of introducing your content.
And you put the word in the title, right?
Literally.
Yeah, that's really smart, because then they know what to expect from the beginning.
Yeah, and it's a segment. We also have work at, so they know we're going to talk to a person who works at a company and tells us what it is to be a production manager for the H&M or a goldsmith at a jewelry brand.
Yeah.
What's a day of a goldsmith like? That's
true.
just fun to know.
Yeah. So do you think that in storytelling, stories are pretty successful as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
but more
all
like
we do, or all you.
Yeah. But like more like, if you say, for example, the history of New Balance compared to storytelling, a day working at New Balance or something like that. Between those two, which one would you think you will do better?
I think it matters more what's your goal. Do you want to attract employees for future? Plant a seed with the reader that they might think, oh, that sounds like a cool employer. Who knows?
Yeah,
I will take a look. Or do you want to explain and share knowledge about the history of your brand?
Yeah. But that's crazy how many tiny little details go behind just doing one little piece of article. And then if you think about all the steps before that, then the article itself doesn't need that much like production or that much editing or anything like that. More about the genuine content that is inside. That's very interesting.
What we tell, our brands and collaborations that we help them, we usually say all the knowledge is there. All we need to do is empty their heads, shake them, and get the letters and the words on paper.
Obviously, with all of this content and deciding what's good or bad, besides all of this, in a way, because it's marketing, because it's sales, there's also KPIs and numbers that you keep track on. What are the main ones that you see that give you like a signal being like, yeah, this is going in the right direction?
So I think important to know before that is you have a marketing or a sales funnel.
Yeah.
Right. And certain numbers belong to certain phases of a orientation from a client or prospect or whatever. And I think this kind of content is really in like the orientation phase, and the decision is made much later. Like I think in content marketing, there's not really actual sales taking place that requires next steps.
Yeah.
This is just a part of the whole business, basically.
Okay.
And then we always share reader numbers and average time that the reader spent, because that's engagement. And the more time you engage with something, the more time you invest, how much more time you spend on something. That usually means you like it or you find it interesting at least, or at some point it's going to convert, but it's not a sale.
Yeah.
So and then, for example, in a physical store, they did a lot of research. When a consumer comes in, for example, any kind of sneaker store, you go in, you have a drink, you get to play on a football table or a tennis table. There's a DJ. You're going to spend more time in the store. You're going to spend money. The more time you spend, the more money you spend.
It's interesting to translate all of those numbers into the digital world because it's just so fluctuating all the time,
Yeah.
right? And I think no matter the industry that you are in, that's why the marketing plan also keeps changing all the time. It's not like a set thing either because everything else is also changing, just like what you said. Sometimes, despite the best efforts that we do to write the best article and it's heading into the best direction and everything, sometimes it just doesn't yield the results that we want. What will be an advice that you will give your clients, let's say, to being like, how can you improve this content or how can I yield better results from that?
A lot of times brands, they want to sell themselves with using their name, and usually we advise them like, don't do that, but it seems very unnatural to do.
Yeah, like counterproductive.
Yeah, but it actually works. So usually we have to explain them or educate them in the area that they share the knowledge and information behind everything, the story behind it. How did you get to create it? How did your designer think of this? How did they get inspired? What colors did they use? That kind of information goes much deeper because average person is very intelligent and they will see right through. It's not what they're looking for. So they click away and they leave.
Yeah, keeping the transparency.
Not what you want. And sometimes it really doesn't work. It's also, there could be so many factors besides the content.
Yeah.
Maybe the market isn't waiting for what you have. Maybe usually there's a good place and time for anything, but it could be that you're not. And
let's say, because in content, it's very important to remain very unbiased when you're writing things, right? Depending, obviously, what you do, but most importantly, it's important to remain unbiased. When you see a piece of content from a client that it has a biased comment or is something that maybe you know that the public won't like or anything, what is your tips or advice for the client to being like how to reapproach the article or how to reapproach the content that they're doing to then, as a professional, give your advice on how to improve the piece?
Usually beforehand, we already determined the topics.
Okay.
And how we're going to write, what we're going to write. Are we going to do an interview, Q&A, or can we call that a license to write? Basically, can we be entrusted with the entire process? So you give us a topic, we'll write about it, and we'll use your pictures as an example. So it's very quiet in terms of marketing or like a commercial, but it does work because the reader is smart enough to pick up on those tiny details.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you become too obvious or obnoxious or like, oh, look at us, or too biased, they want to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
And they will not finish what you've wrote. So
yeah. And how do you come about to think about the plan that you do with the client? Do you follow any trends? Do you use, like, for example, Google Trends or something like that? Or do you read especially about their market to then choose what's best for them?
Yeah, so we do also for that, we do our own research and interviews with industry professionals. So, for example, we work together with Patone, the color for anything. And we just have connections there in the company and we talk to them. Could be, for example, Liedewij Edekoort, that we also have an interview with, and she's a trend forecaster. And then we basically cluster that information. So we have a segment or a tag, it's called a meta key, related to a certain kind of content. Let's say it's about colors. So we would tag color as a word. And for example, if it's fall winter 24, then color fall winter 24 and Patone. 3 meta keys that are 3 different groups, but we put them under one article so we can reach the niche audience interested in that area. And we can do the same for luxury. So we do, for example, we tag luxury, the brand name, and maybe menswear. So then it's brand name, luxury, brandwear. So that's how we cluster also knowledge and information and make it available in that niche or specific area. So that's relevant for a group of people.
Yeah.
And they will then be cross-exposed to the content that is in there. Because we have like related articles, we do with related products. So it's all integrated.
Lily has a question.
Thank you. So far, it's been really interesting to hear everything about your experience. But I have a question related to what you just mentioned about the luxury fashion industry. What are some key differences that you've noticed between traditional fashion and luxury fashion in terms of content marketing?
So interesting over the last few years has been that there has been very little decline in sales on luxury. And that goes against, for example, the mid-level or the lower level brands that have been, declining sales or declining over a longer period. But with luxury, it's higher than ever. Like it's never been this high worldwide from all the brands, all the luxury brands. They do the highest revenues that they ever had right now. And the luxury industry is also growing. And you can see a lot of luxury tourism, for example. So people from all over the world go to, let's say, Paris or Amsterdam or Italy, to Milan, like the fashion capitals, London.
Yeah.
And they spend so much money. And it's luxury, fashion. The other day, I talked to Louisa about a Louis Vuitton handbag that Pharrell was wearing, and it's 1 million. Is that a crazy price or is it a normal price? Like for the person who can afford it, they want to buy it. They want to wear it. So and content-wise, it's definitely about the story and about your brand identity. And that's the whole thing about storytelling and content marketing. It's about your identity. Who are you? What do you do? And the person who likes what you do and who you are is probably similar in a way as you are. And that's why it works so well when you have a certain company or idea and you use a passion, then other people will be attracted to the passion and then tell that into a story becomes
and
your content.
I have another question because I saw it this morning I forgot my headset at home. So I listened to everything around in the train. And someone mentioned about something that IKEA did with, I think it was Balenciaga waist towels. They are cost 1,000 euros. But then IKEA got a promotion, like he climbed on the trend because they became very popular, and they released their own towels for 10 euros.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did with the model with the IKEA bag and everything. So because they also did this, there's a clear example as well with the SEO department and the marketing department from KPN. When this new, I think it was Adidas or something, they joined and started the brand, then KPN wrote an article about them and their traffic shoot up.
Yeah.
So it's basically like picking up on the trends and introducing new things to the content strategy. What did you think about doing that? Do you think it's smart? How would you go about it and all this?
Yeah, I have an example that I discussed with one of our British editors, and we wrote an article about Burberry. And it's a luxury brand, definitely a luxury brand. But where do you place it? Do you want the Burberry bag?
In my closet.
Do you want in your closet? No, you should wear it.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, Burberry
it's
is so nice, but I don't want to damage it. I don't know.
But then, do you want the jacket, or do you want the bag, or would you prefer to have an Hermes or a Prada bag or a Chanel bag? Which one would you choose? Or the jacket, with the classic pattern.
Yeah.
Like the stripes and the blocks, that's Burberry, right?
Yeah.
The inside of the trench coat.
Yeah, exactly.
So probably you want the Burberry trench coat. But Burberry also wants to live broader than just the jackets.
Yeah.
So then it becomes like, what's my identity? What do I
true.
want to be known for? Or what do I want to be, especially in luxury? What do people want to reach? And then they think about my brand when they want a belt or a jacket or a bag or just in general clothes.
Yeah. So you think that it is smart from more affordable brands to basically jump on the cloud of the bigger, more luxury brands to generate clicks or something? Or do you think it's smarter for them to do it on their own and not do these sort of strategies that they do?
Well, especially in fashion, you have to be very careful if you do that. A funny thing I heard on the radio this morning was, we all know now, the Krompoes.
The Krompoes, yeah.
It was actually thought of by a bakery, a small bakery.
Yes, I read that.
Right?
And she's asking for
And
rights.
she patented the name.
Yeah, she patented the name, yeah.
There are companies in Germany that only exist to sue you for those kind of things, in fashion specifically. Almost every brand I spoke with have had this experience. They get a letter in their mailbox, which sues them for 10,000, 20, 30,000 euros, just because they use the name online that says crocodile green handbag. sorry if it's already registered, and you go to the German Department of Justice to either get sued or just pay it. And usually they settle for a payment. So my advice would not be to copy or be careful with it, because
I really never thought about it like that before. Because obviously jumping on a trend, like if you think about SEO numbers or traffic numbers, and you're like, yeah, of course I'm going to get on this or whatever. But having the patent and in like, the bigger brands, that could definitely be an issue.
Yeah. And also point. Jumping on a trend, that's all that fashion does.
True. Everything is created.
Yeah. When you see something on the street and you see quite a few people having a variation of that, that's a trend. And we say like you have a hype, which is like 1 to 3 years, then it leaves and it doesn't come back. You have a trend, it stays a bit longer, from 3 to 5 years. And you have fashion, which is basically timeless. It stays from 5 to 10, 20, 30 years long. So do you want to create a hype trend, or do you want to create a fashion? It depends on your brand again. There could be good brands that every time there's a hype, they jump on it. That's what they're known for. That's what they're successful. That could be your strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be a trend, a little bit less risky, maybe a bit more commercial, or you could be fashion. And then you become like known for one thing that you do really good, and you claim the authority in your niche market, and you become a player.
I think that's why what you said at the beginning, the creation of the brand and the content part is hard to build them together, because you see how much brain capacity you need for one, how much you need for the other one. It's like a completely different muster. When I decided that I didn't want to design, then I completely had to forget about it and completely had like a different way of seeing things, because it's impossible to see them the same. You've told me things you haven't told me before.
You asked me things.
That means I did my job well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Do you have any other advice for people that are starting to get into this part of their marketing business, or starting to grow their business in a way that they start needing content like this? Other than what you've said already, any extra advice that you have?
Well, if I would say, like, the listeners to this podcast, they're starting out with any kind of marketing, then because you're starting out, you're small, you can play around and experiment. My advice would be do that. Then also follow your gut feeling on what you think, hey, this went well, or this felt good. So I'm going to continue doing it, trying it a bit different, twisting the buttons, then see what happens.
Yeah. Now let that passion die down. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, you're welcome.
And thank you all for listening to another great episode of Wires and Cross. Subscribe on Spotify so you never miss any future uploads. Also follow us on all of our social media, which you can find the link in the description of the episode. We are going to be uploading episodes every couple of weeks, so you never miss any of the wonderful things digital marketing has to offer you. And we're here to answer all the questions that you have. So please use the Q&A box also in the description. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.